picking up one of my Spider-Man Grail comic books. Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, comic book fan, Spider-Man fan. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you know that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I have a strong connection to Spider-Man comics. Legend has it, my very first Spider-Man comic is Amazing Spider-Man number 266 from 1985. I really started to read and collect Spider-Man, however, in 1987, between 87 and 92 or so. This video is about a Grail comic book of Spider-Man that I picked up. In the world of collecting, a Grail is basically a comic that you've been questing for and that you finally acquired. A little bit of back history before I show you that comic. It's not this one, spoiler alert, it's another one, but here's a little back history. This is Web of Spider-Man, number 1, 1984, amazing Charles Vess painted cover. It features Peter Parker Spider-Man with the alien symbiote before it became Venom. That's a whole huge story about how the Venom symbiote came about, which has been retconned recently, which I don't like that retcon. I like the original, that it was an alien symbiote that Peter Parker got in Battle World during the Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars, so the very first Marvel event book. This is from 1984, so it's before the time I started to read Spider-Man on the reg, but I picked this up in middle school, 1992, I think, somewhere around there, 91 or so. I bought it for $20 from Caesar Mitchell, my nemesis. He was jacking up the price, so he was probably going to sell it to me for $5 until he realized that I really wanted it. So I had to save up all my money, and I paid $20 for it. $20 in the early 90s was titanic, was catastrophic. I didn't have that amount of money, but I scrounged the money together and I bought the book, and I've had it ever since. It's not in amazing condition, but I've got my own copy of it right here. If you notice in the corner here, this is a direct edition copy. The Spider-Man head denoted that this comic was found in comic shops, these fancy newfangled places called the direct market comic shops, because all before then, comics had been found in the newsstand. This is a newsstand edition of the same comic. This was found at 7-Eleven, grocery stores, liquor stores, the newsstand. So this is the kind of modality that comics were published first in the beginning. Then comic shops, the direct market came about because the promise of bigger profits and the like. Newsstand edition comics could be returned back and refunded if they didn't sell, whereas direct edition books, you kept them as a back issue. The comic shop kept them as a back issue. So if the book got valuable, they can continue to sell it. They needed to be denoted because unscrupulous comic book shop owners could get the direct edition version and then return it for a refund and scam the company. So it was decided that they needed to change the barcode to something else, and for Marvel, it was usually the Spider-Man head. Here they did the black costume Spider-Man head. So that's the difference between these two. I have a couple of copies of them, as you can see here, one of each from my collection. So my original one and then some that I got later on. Now we as collectors are always looking to fill the holes of our collection in various ways. Is it a first appearance? Is it a cool cover? Is it an important plot point? A first appearance, a death, the final issue, first issue? Lots of ways to collect comic books. What's hot at the moment is to pick up newsstand editions of various comic books. So here's my newsstand edition of Amazing Spider-Man number 252, the first appearance of the black costume in the regular Spider-Man continuity. This preceded this comic over here. So this is a fine addition to my collection. This is a riff on the Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man on the cover of a comic book, but in the black costume. This was also slightly before my time. I wasn't reading comics at this time. Picked it up on eBay recently-ish for a great price. I was reading comics, however, during the time that Venom made his debut. Yes, this is my original copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 300. It's not in perfect condition, but it is signed by David Michelinie, and it's the comic shop edition that I picked up at, most likely at Omni Comics in Imperial Beach way back in 1988. First cameo appearance in 299, first full appearance in 300 with an amazing battle, and it's the 25th anniversary of Spider-Man. So I was there. I got this off of the comic shops. I thought to myself, well, one day, before it gets extremely expensive, I should probably get also the newsstand edition. So a couple of years ago, I picked up the newsstand edition as well before prices got insane. And now I've got one of each. My original copy from the 80s, one that I got in the last few years to round out my collection. You like first appearances? How about first appearance of Carnage? So here's the first appearance of Carnage, number 361. So 60 issues later, 6 years later, we get the spawn of Venom. Now, Carnage was being built up for like half a dozen issues before we even saw Carnage actually. And here's the first appearance on the cover, first full appearance. At last, the spawn of Venom. The spawn of Venom. And this is a newsstand edition. Now, as time went on, newsstand edition versions got more and more rare. Comic shops became the norm. Everyone was getting their comics from the comic shop. The newsstand versions were becoming fewer and farther in between. Before 1985, the majority of comics came from the newsstand, and then after 1985, the majority of comics came from a comic shop. So if you get any comic books past 1985 that are newsstand edition, they are rarer and therefore more valuable. This is what's been, as I said, very popular in recent collecting. Newsstand edition of key issues. Glad I have this. I also, just to show off, have the second printing Direct Edition comic shop version. I don't think there's a newsstand edition of this. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But here is the second printing silver ink background cover of the first appearance of Carnage. Very nice. I also have the part 2 of the 3 storyline. It is the newsstand edition as well as the Direct Edition. If you can't get the first appearance, if it's getting too valuable, or how about the second appearance for your collection? And so, as I said, newsstand editions are the valuable things to kind of be on the lookout to fill your collection, and perhaps even look at the alternative, smaller publishers. Here's my copy of Spawn number 1, but no, it's not the one that I've had since the 90s. It is a more recent version because this is the newsstand edition. Image Comics had a tiny foothold in the newsstands. They were pretty much a comic shop type of comic. So finding a newsstand edition of the Image titles, that's where the money is. That's where the collectability is. Everyone's got Spawn number 1. It sold millions of copies. But there's far fewer in existence of the barcode version, the newsstand version. I've got issue number 2, newsstand and direct edition. I've got the direct editions over on my box over there. So I've got issue number 2, newsstand. I've got issue number 9, first appearance of Angela, now in the Marvel universe, newsstand edition. I have the Cerebus appearance, issue number 10, newsstand edition. I have the issue number 25, Mark Silvestri, drawn Spawn, newsstand edition. I'm out on the lookout for some of the other Image newsstand editions because I've got the direct editions, of course. You know, I was there in the 90s picking them up at my comic shop. I never saw and I never knew really that there were newsstand editions, so I've been picking these up on eBay when I find them. Here is the Savage Dragon number 1, Intense Action from Eric Larson, first brutal issue, newsstand edition. So I still need to pick up the other ones. I've got the Max number 1 newsstand coming in the mail at the moment, and I need to be on the lookout for the others of the original launch titles, Youngblood, Wildcats, etc. Well, as I said, how about some of the smaller publishers? Here we have a copy of Simpsons Comics number 1 from Bongo Comics, first issue collector's item. I have a regular comic shop edition, of course, but now, recently, I got the newsstand edition, Simpsons Comic number 1. He's here, and he's hungry, the amazing colossal Homer. Obviously, this is an homage to Fantastic Four number 1 from Marvel Comics. This is from 1993, so think about it. As I said, past 1985 into the 90s, newsstand editions are pretty rare. Okay, what about newsstand editions of the smaller publishers that didn't have very good deals, a very good foothold to be in the newsstands? Even rarer. Here's a first issue, first appearance of The Simpsons in comic book format, on the newsstand. Very fine condition. I'm very happy to have this. So, first issue, last issue. It's a Simpsons send-off. Bongo Comics still publishing it all the way to issue 245. So 245 months later, 20 years later, in 2018, 25 years later, in 2018 is when this was published. So the last issue of The Simpsons in 2018, RIP. But wait a minute. A newsstand edition, final issue of The Simpsons, published in 2018? By the time of the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s, the newsstand editions are getting more and more and more and more and more rare. By now, there's basically no newsstand comics out there. Actually, there's a few if you know where to look. But all the publishers, Marvel, DC, the big ones, have stopped doing newsstand editions. Image stopped a long time ago. Bongo was one of the last ones that was doing newsstand editions. And here I've got a copy, I've actually got 3 more over there, of the final issue of The Simpsons, direct edition from the comic shops. That's easy to get. Newsstand edition, very hard to get. That's the collectability of it all. I've also got the final issue of SpongeBob SquarePants comics, newsstand edition, issue 85, also publishing in the newsstand. This one is from United Plankton Pictures, so very indie publisher, publishing to the newsstands, very rare, very covetous. I heard you like Archie Comics, I heard you like Riverdale, I heard you like Cheryl Blossom. How about Riverdale issue number 9, photo variant cover, newsstand edition? Yep, extremely rare newsstand edition for this series. This is a Riverdale volume 1, I believe. Amazing photo cover of Cheryl Blossom, everyone's favorite redhead. Newsstand edition, I can't believe it. I also can't believe that I picked up one of the final issues of the DC Comics newsstand editions. Very shortly after this issue, within 6 months, I believe, DC stopped. So from the 1930s to 2017, DC was publishing newsstand comics, getting more and more rare past the 90s, past the 2000s, into the new millennium, the 2010s, the end of the 2010s, the famous proposal issue, first printing, newsstand edition. Amazing. Prices are often different also on the newsstands. Now let's back up a little bit. Newsstand editions are the rare ones past 1985. Newsstand editions were common before 1985. So getting back to Web of Spider-Man, pop quiz, which of these two is more desirable, more valuable? You are wrong. The direct edition comic shop version technically is the more desirable, more valuable. What did I say earlier? Past 1985, comic shops are more common. Before 1985, comic shops are less common, more rare. After 1985, newsstands are less common, more rare. Before 1985, newsstands are more common, less rare. So we're right at the cutoff point right here, 84. Everyone's just going gaga for everything newsstand, everything newsstand, everything newsstand, but you've got to know before 85, direct edition is more valuable. Check this out over here. Issue number 200 of Amazing Spider-Man. Double the size, double the thrills. Our 200th issue anniversary spectacular where Spider-Man battles the burglar that made him Spider-Man back in Amazing Fantasy 15 in 1962. What's this right here? Oh, it's the newsstand edition barcode, right? Look carefully. This is newsstand edition. This is direct edition. This is a very early comic shop edition. Before Marvel standardized the Spider-Man head in the corner, Marvel was crossing out their barcodes to show this is not a newsstand edition, this is a direct edition, a comic book shop, a specialty comic book shop edition. This is from 1979, January 1980, published in 1979. This is what you want. Don't get the newsstand edition Amazing Spider-Man 200. Everyone had that one. You want the direct edition comic shop version of these earlier issues. The very fledgling market, 1978, 1979, 1980, the very beginnings of the comic shops. These are way more rare. To be honest, the seller on eBay did not know what they were selling. They thought they were just selling Amazing Spider-Man number 200. They should have probably charged me double what they charged me for this comic, because they didn't know, but now you do, that this is a comic shop version, a direct edition, which again, before 1985, less comic shops around. After 1985, more comic shops around. More rare. Amazing Spider-Man number 194 came out a few months before this. First appearance of the Black Cat, featuring a startling, all-new villainous, never let the Black Cat cross your path. Amazing cover, featuring my favorite Spider-Man villain, comic shop version. Once again, the crossed-out barcode, back in those days, 1979, meant comic shops, non-returnable. These were returnable, refundable. These were non-refundable because of these newfangled comic shops were popping up into existence. These two right here are a couple of jewels in my collection. Once again, the seller didn't know they were selling me the much rarer comic shop version of this comic book. Don't tell them. I'm very proud of having these two. But we're not done yet. Here's Web of Spider-Man number 1 Annual, another Charles Vess cover. He's such a great artist. This is the first annual from 1985. And you know where we're going. I do have the comic shop version, the newsstand version is 1985, right in the middle. These are equally valuable, equally rare. I would lean a little bit more towards newsstand editions being more common, comic shops being slightly less common. Definitely after 85 it flips. So okay, got one of each of these. If you're still with me in this video, thank you, because now let's get to the main meat of the video. What do I have here? Alright, it's another newsstand edition. It's Web of Spider-Man number 1, Charles Vess cover. The cover art is way better than the interior art, sorry to the artist there. But yeah, okay, another copy of Web of Spider-Man Annual number 1. See anything different? Why does that one cost $1.50? These two are $1.25. The little logo area looks a little bit different. This is an M, this is a square, this is a square, but that says $1.50. This is the next level of collecting. The Canadian price variants. Marvel and DC were publishing special versions, higher priced versions, of some of their comics for a short amount of time in the 80s, directed towards the Canadian market. The population of Canada was a fraction of the population of the US at the time. Therefore, very few were printed at this price for the Canadian market. This is what I'm getting at as for this video. Comic shop editions, newsstand editions, Canadian price variant editions. For about 5 years or less, Marvel was printing Canadian price editions. These are rare. These are valuable. These are items that sellers do not know what they're selling, perhaps. They just see, yeah, newsstand. Let me charge you a newsstand price. It's not about the newsstand. It's about the Canadian price variant. Got a couple more examples over here. Here's Amazing Spider-Man number 244, 75 cents. Canadian price variant. At this time, these comics would have been 60 cents in the US. Newsstand edition, Canadian newsstand edition, 75 cents. Canadian price variant. Ooh, that's an epic cover right there. That's 245, 75 cents, newsstand edition, Canadian price variant. Number 249, Hobgoblin Triumphant. Only the Kingpin can save him. Newsstand edition, 75 cents, Canadian price variant. And lastly, look at this cover. Issue 250. It's great, steal it. Special, normal size, 250th issue. Behold the face of death. Behold Hobgoblin. Behold Canadian price variant. Did I just reveal something new for you to collect? Canadian price variants? Did you know about CPVs? Tell me about it in the comments. Well, I'm showing off all of these comic books that I have so that finally I can show you the Grail that I was talking about at the very beginning of the video. Let's open up this Grail. See if you can guess what it is, based on everything I've talked about so far. Alright, here we go. Hot off the press. Not really, hot off the mailbox. You know what I mean. So I'm opening up this totally live right here. Have not opened it up at all. As I said, this is one of the Grails. One of the comics that I've been trying to get for a while. Finally tracked down a copy at a reasonable price. Now I'm opening it with all of you. Here it is. Here it is. Very well protected. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Careful. Careful. Web of Spider-Man #1, Canadian price variant. Newsstand, Canadian price variant. Extremely rare. Seems to be in excellent condition. These are pretty hard to find on eBay. Go look for them right now. If the person knows what they're selling, this is gonna go for a premium. Because once again, the US 65-cent version Newsstand edition is more common in 1984 versus the 65-cent Direct Edition version. This one's less common. Sellers on eBay are pricing the Newsstand edition higher than the Direct Edition because they're uneducated. After 1985 is when these are more rare. Before 1985 is when these are more rare. Now you know. And the even more rare of certain books. Not every book got the Canadian price variant treatment, and it was only a short amount of time when Marvel thought it's not quite worth it to have a separate version. So 75 cents, Canadian price variant, Web of Spider-Man #1. I have now completed the whole set. The one that I bought originally in middle school in the early 90s, Direct Edition. The one that I bought years later, Newsstand Edition. And the one that I just bought, Canadian price variant, 75 cents. Beautiful Charles Vess cover. It's really cool to see also the variation in the printing. I noticed that these two are a little bit bluer in the costume, and this one's a little bit more black in the costume. I like that. The colors of the sky, I kind of like the blue of the sky there a little bit better. Notice that's also darker than that. It's a little bit more purple over here. It's just fascinating to see the variety of printings that happened. The browns of the buildings. It's kind of a little bit more faded out over here. But that's my Grail book. Yes, Amazing Spider-Man 300 and 360 and the final issue of The Simpsons and all of that. Yes, all of those are amazing things. The first appearance of Black Cat, Direct Edition. Yes, I love all that stuff. But this just has a lot of nostalgia for me. It was one of the first comics that I really paid a lot for. $20 back in the early 90s. It was unheard of for me to pay that much for a comic when I was paying $1 for them at the comic shops. I remember when they were 75 cents and then they went to $1. That was very shocking. And then to save up to get this for $20, yes, I way overpaid. Not in amazing condition. You'll pay Caesar Mitchell if I ever find you. But now I've got all versions of it in my collection. What the heck? I'll show off this next one too. Small packet from Ontario, Canada Post, par avion, comic book. What do you think this is? Another Web of Spider-Man Canadian price edition. No, I did not pay $15.99 for that. I wish I did. I wish they didn't have it left. I wish they didn't leave it here to taunt me, because I definitely paid more than that. But let's examine what we've got. This is the first one that I bought, and then I saw another one on sale. So I snapped them up both because, as I said, these are the big bucks. More rare ones, 75-cent Canadian price variants. Printing, this one looks more blue than this one. That's interesting. And then these are even more blue. So very blue, less, even less blue. Pretty interesting. Don't they look amazing all together? And that's the video. It was a long one. Thanks for sticking it out with me. Did you learn a few things about comic books? Direct editions versus newsstand editions versus Canadian price variant editions? And that's the great thing about comic books. There's just so many ways to enjoy them, as I said. First appearances, first issues, last issues, variant covers, cool plots, the nostalgia of it all, and just variants. Tell me what you like to collect in the comments. Tell me about what you thought about this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell, battle the Minotaur, do all that good stuff. If you really like my content, consider pressing the join button right here in YouTube to become part of the VmCrew and unlock exclusives. This has been VM Campos, and I'll see you next time.